Hello, you. You're listening to A History of Italy. Episode 201, Spanish Italy in the early 1500s, Sardinia and Sicily.
E così ritorno su, lascio I colli nelle valli, tra due salici piangenti, io ritrovo la speranza di un amore che ormai fu.
Over the last few episodes, we have rushed into the 1500s following the Italian Wars, the Medici popes, Leonardo da Vinci, and set up a new Medici duchy by looking at Giovanni dalle Bande Nere and his son Cosimo, and the situation in Florence after the sack of Rome in 1527. Before we delve any further, we need to, once again, take a tour around the peninsula to catch up with the bits that have fallen behind, that have been a little ignored since we looked at the start of the Italian Wars, that is, the main islands and the Kingdom of Naples, despite the fact that the kingdom itself was a focus of the Italian Wars as late as 1528. Just a geography reminder, Italy has the mainland boot part and then two main large islands, Sardinia to the west and Sicily to the southwest. Each of the two islands is one of the 20 administrative regions that make up Italy. The many other islands, such as Capri, Elba, and Stromboli, belong to one of those regions. Let's head first to the crystal-clear waters of Sardinia. It won't take us long, as we're not going to go too much in detail here. Interestingly, Sardinia is one of the regions we translate into English. Indeed, in Italian we call it Sardegna. Others that get an English translation are Piedmont, Lombardy, Tuscany, and Apulia, to name a few, while my Emilia-Romagna has just one version, as do Trentino, Aosta, Abruzzo, and others. Anyway, we visited with Sardinia a while back, and we saw that by the early 1400s it had come under the complete Spanish Aragonese control and would remain so until 1720. The territory was administered by a viceroy, who was often from one of the main barons of the Sardinian feudal system. Two big families, the Carrots and Cubello, made up around 45% of the global income of the feudal lords, and we saw that for most of the 1400s, these two maintained a delicate balance on the island, with a third family, the Centelles, until a succession crisis in the latter part of the century sent everything crashing down. The Spanish would eventually gain control of the island again, and the crowns of Castile and Aragon were united with Ferdinand and Isabella, and they were able to start with their reorganization and consolidation of the holdings in Italy. In Sardinia, they had 31,641 of what were known as fuochi fiscali, or fiscal hearths or fireplaces, meaning family units, half of whom were under feudal control. The cities on the island had not reached the levels of independence that those on the mainland had, but cities such as Cagliari, Sassari, Alghero, Castello Aragonese, Iglesias, and Oristano had managed to grow and develop an influential class of merchants, bankers, and lawyers. Cagliari in the south and Sassari in the northwest were the only two with an actual statute that they had inherited in the period in which they were under the influence of the maritime republics of Pisa and Genoa, both of whom had been ousted by the Spanish. These two cities would compete in importance until Cagliari won out, when it was granted the right to be the main grain market in 1519. To this day, the city is the regional seat. With Ferdinand and Isabella, the island once again got to hold parliaments. Until that point, they had to content themselves with sending delegations to the kings. They also got a new electoral system on a random selection basis that allowed a little influence also to the up-and-coming classes such as the doctors, notaries, and merchants mentioned above. Under Ferdinand, Sardinia managed to find a peaceful balance and even experience a period of economic growth. They did not see a whole lot of the king on the island and saw even less of his successor, Charles V, who only stopped by in 1535 to start his campaign against Tunis, and again in 1541 when the destination was Algiers. Otherwise, the rule was left to the viceroy, who also had the right to call parliaments, and this setup would last until Charles abdicated the Spanish bits of Italy to Philip II in 1556. He had already been managing things for a while. The whole business of the Italian wars was not really felt in Sardinia, except for a moment in 1527 when a French invasion force, aided by Genoese ships, occupied Sassari for a short time, leaving quite a bit of destruction in their wake. All in all, Sardinia was not too much of a headache for the Spanish and offered an important logistical stepping stone from Spain through the Balears and on to the Italian mainland. Things were a little bit more complicated in Sicily. There, the population was a bit more numerous than in Sardinia, but still did not reach more than 500,000. The Roman roads, which had still been in use at the end of the 1200s at the time of the uprising of the Sicilian Vespers, were now crumbling. The political scene was dominated by the nobility, who had managed to stifle the attempts by the emerging classes, who were not called classes yet, to enter into the halls of power. There had been some timid experiments, such as in Messina, where a power-sharing deal had been set up between the nobility and the popolari, and a sort of mayor, who was not a noble, was nominated, but in the end he didn't manage to get much done under the stifling control of the barons. We know that Sicily, like Sardinia and the Kingdom of Naples, was now under the direct control of the Spanish crown, and in 1509 there was a change of viceroy. Ramon de Córdoba was sent to Naples, and in his place from Valencia came Ugo de Moncada. He had served with our old buddy Cesare Borgia and under the French, but now was loyal to the Spanish. With him, the military and political power were in the hands of a single person governing an island which was viewed by the Spanish as the Mediterranean bastion against the Muslim forces in northern Africa. In this sense, in 1510, an expedition was sent under the command of Pietro Navarro, who managed to take Tripoli and gain an important foothold in Africa. This ended up not being particularly useful, and they were not able to continue the campaign towards Tunis, and it didn't do much to curb the ever-increasing plague of piracy in what was once the Mare Nostrum of the Romans. What is more, the campaign was yet another expense. In 1511, a Sicilian parliament grudgingly granted a donative of 300,000 florins, but the pressure was rising. If you add to this that in the previous year the Inquisition had come to Sicily, it made for a downright explosive situation. The spark came in August of 1511. In that period, a Spanish army under the command of one Diego de Rivera passed through Palermo on its way back from Athens, where they had made a bad name for themselves, looting and raping. On the 19th of August, a young girl by the name of Nina was walking down the Alberghiera road carrying some fresh bread. A hungry Spanish soldier approached her, stealing the bread and running off. The girl started yelling, bringing her family running, as well as her fiancé, a man by the name of Giovanni Pollastra, nicknamed Surciddo, which in Sicilian dialect means little mouse. He jumped on his horse to go and look for the thief. This caught the attention of the inhabitants of the city and gave rise to a rebellion that would leave hundreds of Spanish soldiers dead, and their commander, de Rivera, was forced to flee disguised as a woman. Surciddo was not looking to lead a rebellion, and he did his best to convince everyone that justice had been done and it was time to calm down and head home. Nevertheless, Viceroy de Moncada had Pollastra arrested and condemned to be hung. There was yet another rebellion the day of the execution, and the crowd tried to rush the gallows and save Surciddo. Sadly, when they reached the young man, he was already dead. The following year, 1512, after the viceroy had imposed an export tax, another rebellion exploded in which more Spanish soldiers were killed. Moncada was able to put down the rebellion with the soldiers he had left and executed the ringleaders. He had been able to put down the rebellion thanks also to the help of the barons. Among the populares, an increasing anti-noble sentiment was bubbling. This came to the surface in the difficult transition period that started with the death of King Ferdinand in 1516. From the following year, 1517, all the way to 1522, the island was agitated by a series of rebellions, many of which had a distinct anti-noble trait. Indeed, the barons were seen as, and often were, in league with the Spanish authorities in their repressive action. The period of troubles also helped to swell the number of bandits roaming the countryside, and if you add to this the increasingly destructive Arab raids, it made for a rather sticky situation. In the earliest rebellion of this phase, the usurpers were able to take control of the cannons on the walls of Palermo and point them at the palace of the viceroy. The first guy who was called in after the death of the king, the Count of Caltabellotta, only lasted 8 months before Ettore Pignatelli, the Count of Monteleone, was called in 1517. His strategy was to sit back and not get too much involved, to let the various forces on the island fight it out until they ran out of energy, and he managed to restore order in 1518. One of the leaders of this period of rebellion was a disgraced noble by the name of Gianluca Squarcialupo, which means wolf ripper. He actually managed to take over the administration. Squarcialupo governed for a few weeks before his supporters realized that he didn't really know what he was doing and abandoned him and returned to the king's side. As we mentioned, the troubles continued until around 1522, when a bout of plague, which had arrived via Siracusa but hit hardest in Messina, took a lot of the fight out of the contenders. If you add to this the fall of Rhodes in 1520, it meant that the external threat of Arab raids became even more pressing. With the growth of external factors, Viceroy Monteleone was able to keep a lid on the situation on the troubled island up until his death in 1535. It was in that year that the island was greatly honoured by the visit of Emperor Charles V himself for the first time in 14 years. He arrived in Trapani, then moved to Monreale near Palermo, and then to the capital city itself, passing through Porta Nuova, Newgate, which had been restructured and enlarged especially for the occasion. Charles stayed for a while, did a little sightseeing, and fell in love with the city, something I hope to do as I am visiting Palermo at the end of April, so suggestions are welcome. The visit left both Charles and the Sicilians all happy and tingly inside, and then everyone lived in peace and harmony, happily ever after, forever. Either that or they didn't, but we'll get back to them. Grazie mille. Thank you very much for listening. A History of Italy is a Sentire Media podcast, created and hosted by me, Mike Corradi, and produced by my wonderful Patreon supporters, whom I would like to thank, starting from the second third of the Margherita Hack and Galileo Galilei level, and they are Gabriel S., Gunnar W., Ignazio, Il Valentino, Jane T., Jeff M., Jeffrey W., John W., Joni T., John J., Jordan C., Joshua G., Julia G., Justin E., Kelly, Kyle D., Laurie B., Old John in Milwaukee, and Michus Porchus. And of course, we cannot forget the tippy-top Maria Montessori and Dante Alighieri level, Lisa K., Peter W., David L., David C., Sen, David A., Karen D., Bridget T., Dallas, Joseph, Stephen, and Julian. If, like them, you'd like to have access to extra content, please go to ahistoryofitaly.com and to the support page where you can find the Patreon link, or you can donate on PayPal for a one-off donation. Thank you very much if you decide to do so. We'd also love just to hear from you. hello@ahistoryofitaly.com, or you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again very much for listening, and until next time, arrivederci. What's going on?
A man stole my fresh bread and ran away. Then Surcido took after him, and I'm afraid.
Surcido? A little mouse?
Yes, he took after him.
A mouse ran after a man?
No, he got on a horse.
The man or the mouse?
The mouse, but he's my boyfriend.
Your boyfriend is a mouse?
No, he's Little Mouse.
Is that any better?
You don't understand. Surcido and the horse.
Is the horse your boyfriend too?
What? No.
Uncle?
What? No, I have no familial relationship with a horse.
Just a mouse?
Yes, Surcido. But he's a man, not a mouse. And he's my cute little mousy welsy.
So a mouse took your bread, then jumped on a horse and rode off, right?
I'm sorry, are you dumb?
Well, that's a bit mean.
Oh dear, am I hurting your feelings?
Well, yeah, a little.
Well, boo-hoo! If you're not going to be of any help, just clear off.
Oh, okay, I'll help. What animals are we looking for exactly?
Oh, for goodness sake, we're not looking for any animals. A Spanish soldier stole my fresh bread and went off with it.
Was the Spanish soldier a mouse too?
No!
Rat?
Oh my God.
A sloth?
A what?
A sloth.
A sloth? How fast could he possibly run if he had been a sloth?
Well, I don't know. He might have been a particularly athletic sloth, and maybe he was captain of the sloth swim team.
What is wrong with you?
I'm fine, thanks. How about you?
Getting rather frustrated speaking to an idiot.
Oh, wow, that does sound unpleasant. Is the idiot a person or an animal?
I'm beginning to wonder.
Oh, you can't tell the difference? Maybe that's why you're dating a mouse and you think your uncle is a horse.
What? Why? What? Listen.
What?
Go to that guy over there and ask him if he knows anything.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Hey, so listen.
What now?
I'm a bit hungry. Do you, have any more bread?
Go away.
That seems fair.